Hello everyone, and welcome to the first video in a series that takes an in-depth look at the character development of Sora, the main protagonist of the Kingdom Hearts series. I first announced this series in 2015 as meant to be a single video with a rant-style format in response to the opinion among Kingdom Hearts fans that Sora had little to no character development. Over time, it became apparent that this was going to be a video series with a tone more appropriate for looking at Sora's character development. I never intended for this series to come out so late, but I want to thank everyone who's been patiently waiting for it. I also want to thank Teal for his encouragement and help in making this series possible. Each game will be covered in one video, with this one discussing how I've come to perceive Sora's character, and the final video discussing another misconception relating to his character. Again, thank you everyone for watching this in the upcoming videos, and I hope you enjoy it. I started playing Kingdom Hearts in 2009. I just turned 13, and for many, teenage years aren't always fun. Kingdom Hearts, I can say for certain, changed my life. It taught me what I should look for in friends, and that some friends are worth fighting for. As I've gotten older, I've come to appreciate Sora's character even more than I did when I first started playing the series. To me, Sora's character is best summarized by Ansem the Wise's speech at the end of Dream Drop Distance, and a modification of the idea that he's supposed to be a normal boy. In 2015, a design document for Kingdom Hearts was found that included a description of Sora as someone who has his own personal issues like every other teenager. So it seems that Sora was designed to be a normal boy, and multiple interviews by Nomura after 3D and Master Xehanort's line in 3D try to back up this design, but even then it's hard to agree that Sora is normal. Personally, I think Sora was meant to be a protagonist we're supposed to relate to, and his normality stems from those personal issues he has to deal with. And those issues include the challenges that come from being given new responsibilities or from being away from home, problems with friends, with one's purpose in life, identity, dealing with failure, and being okay with oneself. Take away the Disney and Final Fantasy extremeness, and these are regular problems that we all deal with. This allows for Sora not only to relate to the audience, but to every character in this series and make a connection with them. Sora's willingness to help people, to open his heart and listen, put him in the path of those in need and connected him to almost every Keyblade wielder in the series. And when you think about it, that's a power we all have. We, like Sora, can make friends or a connection with everyone we meet. And we don't have to do anything special, just be willing to give people a chance. And this is why I bring up Ansem the Wise's speech. He says that hearts are everywhere, and if we're willing to give them a chance, we can see them. We don't need superpowers. And that's Sora. He's willing to see the good before the bad, give everyone a chance and a second chance. He sees the heart in something, even when most don't, and that gives that heart meaning. That optimism and willingness to look for something there are the most defining traits of Sora's character. And because of those traits, Sora has the ability to bring back the hearts and existences of those who were lost throughout the series. And because these are traits that anyone can have, anyone else can have this ability. It's normal. And here's the thing about being normal. It allows for limitless potential to be something more. And no one better shows that than Sora. A boy originally not chosen by the Keyblade. A boy with no formal training in strength, magic, or defense against dark forces. Who came from a small island, became one of the most powerful Keyblade wielders in history. He saved the worlds multiple times, stopped two of Xehanort's plans that took years to come to fruition, became a Heartless and regained his human form without destroying his nobody, and opened the door to light. And as the final battle with Xehanort draws near, Sora has been described as the light's best chance at stopping him. All he has to do is follow his heart, be himself, and we, like Sora, can make ourselves more than what we are now. Before I end this video, I wanted to say how I've come to relate with Sora, and this is going to get very personal. As I've said, Kingdom Hearts taught me what I should look for in friends, and that some friends are worth fighting for. While I didn't have problems making friends when I was younger, I had problems keeping them. The people who were nice to me were only like that for a little while. When I didn't like how my friends had treated other people, they would begin to treat me that way, so I just leave them behind. I didn't need those people in my life. But the problem was that for a long time I was jumping in between friend groups because that's the only type of friend I was finding. So by the time I got Kingdom Hearts, I didn't have a lot of friends and I had no idea what I should look for in a friend anymore. When I started playing Kingdom Hearts and I let some people know that at my school, suddenly I had a lot of friends who were so much different than the ones I was making before. They also play Kingdom Hearts, so we had common interest, and they showed qualities that Sora did. A willingness for first and second chances, looking at the bright side, enjoying the little things in life, and exhibiting patience and understanding. And from that point on, I looked for friends with those qualities, and I realized that I had them too. And playing a character who has those qualities and went through friend issues like I had made the game so much more meaningful to me. By the time I finished Kingdom Hearts 2, I knew that if Sora could have such a happy ending, then maybe I could too. The series gave me a better look on life. And in the last 2 years, I've come to relate to Sora on a much different level. Some of you may not know, but nearly 2 years ago, I lost the house that I lived in for 16 years in a fire. I didn't make it out with much, so nearly everything I owned was lost. For a week, we didn't know if we actually lost the house, and when we did, we had to come to terms with that. And even though we're done rebuilding, a lot of days are tough. We're still kind of living in our cramped living space, and so I would go to sleep in a bed that's not mine. I didn't really have any space for myself. I don't get to go to my room or lay on my couch. I just didn't really have that. And I missed it a lot. But nothing was gonna get done if we were gonna dwell on it. And some days hurt, but we carried on. And replaying through Kingdom Hearts 1 after this, I often thought about if Sora felt this way. He too lost everything in one day, and he had to keep going, keep smiling, because he wouldn't be able to help the world by staying sad. I can't imagine every day being easy for him, which is why I find his strength in taking up the mantle of a Keyblade builder so incredible. Alright, I'm going off script a bit here. I wasn't planning on leaving this part in, but I still think the message is important. So this part's can be very hard for me to get through, because this is still happening. It's just kind of ended, but it's raw. So. Also, this past year I was able to relate to Sora's struggle to maintain his friendship with Riku. The idea that some friends are worth fighting for I learned this past year. I had a friend who was changing in a way that meant hurting my feelings and taking away an idea I had begun to believe in. It was devastating and I couldn't do anything about it. But I decided not to be bitter. I did not want to hate my friend because I felt that our friendship was worth fighting for. So I made sure that my friend could still feel like he could come to me for anything he needed, and after a few weeks of dwelling on it, on what I could do, if anything, I decided to tell my friend that he couldn't get rid of me. I was there to stay, and at that time, he agreed. I thought he realized that our friendship meant something, and from that point up until recently, our friendship was very strong. Just like Sora did for Riku, I was patient, did what I could, and fought for my friend, and it wasn't easy. I wanted to be angry, and I have been for a while, because it made it hurt less. But the pain always comes back. It didn't go away till I faced it, although this is something that has come back and hurt again. Anyway, this is the decision that Sora made encoded and in 3D, and like fighting for Riku, the decision was, like fighting for Riku, the decision wasn't easy to make. Which again makes Sora's strength and resolve all the more inspiring to me. As I've mentioned, actually, writing this is no longer true. This segment is no longer true. But the lesson that, you fight for your friends, I still learned that. And I still believe in it. So, I'm leaving all that in. I don't want to edit that shit. I don't want to read that passage again. Sora means a lot to me. He's one of my favorite characters of all time, and I know that saying I relate so much to a video game character is a bit weird to some people, but that's just how I feel. and this feeling is why I need to do this series. I cannot sit and watch people say Sora has less character development than Riku, or that he doesn't show as much emotion as Roxas, or that he shouldn't be the one to fight Xehanort because of those reasons. Sora deserves more respect, and I hope that this series will change some of those opinions. Because Birth by Sleep doesn't revolve around Sora, you'd think I'd skip this section. And while Birth by Sleep doesn't progress Sora's character beyond his kindness and light, which will be mentioned, it does more in establishing the relationship between Sora and Riku that is shown off at the beginning of Kingdom Hearts 1. A relationship that has a profound influence on both boys and can be seen throughout the games. Coded does this as well. Sora and Riku's friendship dynamic shown in Coded will be discussed here, and as well as what we can speculate about the two growing up, and Sora's character up until Destiny Islands are destroyed. When Terra and Aqua travel to Destiny Islands, Sora and Riku are 4 and 5 years old respectively, and they are already, and probably have been since Sora could walk, competing with each other. Both times were shown a race between them, races that Riku wins with Sora not far behind. Riku's teasing and encouragement along with Sora's eagerness to try again shows us their relationship dynamic. Riku seems to win most of the time, but he still encourages Sora, who just doesn't give up. And despite this competitive relationship, they're best friends. They stick together even when things get scary. Like, for example, the monster that they were planning on fighting in the flashback in Kingdom Hearts 1 that led them to discovering the door to the heart of their world. This dynamic for them when they are older is seen more of in Coded and at the end of Kingdom Hearts 2, with Riku teasing Sora about his height and sappiness, and Sora refusing to hear apologies about screw-ups and constantly reminding Riku that he shouldn't default to doing everything alone. Terra smiles at seeing the competitive friendship, and seeing that he and Riku are kindred spirits and wanting strength to protect others, he passes the power of the Keyblade to Riku. Aqua also notices their close friendship and sleeping strength, but she as well notices the power that was passed to Riku. So instead of passing the Keyblade to Sora as per her original plan, in an attempt to avoid the conflict multiple Keyblades bring to a friendship, she asks Sora to stick with Riku if he ever gets in trouble. Because of the strength, kindness, and light she sensed within Sora, Aqua had faith that Sora would be able to make sure his best friend stayed on the right path. The kindness within Sora doesn't go unnoticed by Riku either. When Ven's heart needed a refuge after the Keyblade's destruction, Riku encouraged Sora to open up his heart. Riku knew his best friend's kindness could help whoever it was in need, and even though Sora was completely lost, he went with it, followed his heart, and tried anyways. Like when he was a newborn heart, Sora helped Ven in his time of need, welcoming Ven's sleeping heart into his own. And in doing this, Sora obtained the power to wield a Keyblade, unintentionally putting himself in a future conflict that would jeopardize his friendship with Riku. The years after that, and up to when we see him, Riku, and Kairi again in Kingdom Hearts 1 are admittedly mostly speculation. The only thing we know for certain is that Riku told Sora when he was 8 that Santa Claus didn't exist, and Sora believed him, proclaiming he didn't believe in Santa Claus after that, which apparently lands you on the naughty list for eternity even if you have saved all the worlds from destruction. Nice one, Sora. But I do not feel these speculations are unfounded, as Data Sora and Data Riku's interactions in Coded give us a glimpse of normal interactions between them. Around a year after Birth by Sleep, Radiant Garden was destroyed, and Kairi, through Aqua's spell, landed on Destiny Islands, who then became close friends with Sora and Riku. From BBS, we knew that Sora and Riku were competing to see which one of them was stronger, but with Kairi now on the island, we can assume that the two also started competing for her attention. Selphie, Tidus, and Wakka's dialogue all indicate that Kairi's opinion matters to Sora, and the winner gets to share a Paopu with Kairi race shows that Kairi can be a factor in their various competitions. Sora obviously has feelings for Kairi, also noted by teasing from Selphie and Riku, the Paopu prize being a joke by Riku teasing Sora about sharing a Paopu with someone the night before, and Selphie doing the same thing the next day. Plus the drawing in the cave that we all thought Sora was going to fix, but instead added him giving a Paopu to Kairi. Riku's teasing of Sora indicates that the Kairi Center competitions were his way of messing with Sora, as friends all do, you know it. However, it is unknown if Riku also harbored feelings for Kairi. He obviously cares for her, but it was never made clear if his feelings for her were the same as Sora's. Kairi cannot be assumed oblivious to Sora's feelings for her. She herself even teased him when she suggested that just her and Sora take the raft, or how the boys made her the center of their conflicts. If anything, she probably liked the attention. And if her initializing the race for finishing the raft is any indication, we can assume that Kairi would sometimes goad the two into going at it. So Kairi isn't innocent in all this. but she is still shown to value both Sora and Riku, as she worries about them constantly in all the games, and she turns to Sora for support when she was scared about leaving the island. She values them as they value her. So what has all this competition and teasing done to shape Sora? Well, even though Sora still has a fighting chance to beat Riku by Kingdom Hearts 1, mostly everyone views Sora as weaker than Riku. Tidus and Waka especially, with most of their comments being on how Riku should take care of things and how Riku can handle things better, so Sora should just relax. While not exactly telling Sora to give up, it isn't the most encouraging thing to hear from your friends. The comments don't seem to bother Sora from what we are shown, and while Sora hasn't given up yet, he almost seems to embrace the idea that Riku is better than him, and does let Riku handle things most of the time. From comments by Kairi and Riku, Sora is described as very lazy, a bit forgetful, and as someone who doesn't always listen, so we see Riku picking up the slack. After all, after agreeing to build the raft, Sora did go and take a nap on the beach. Granted, it was a very important nap. But that laid-back demeanor vanishes as Sora's home disappears and he finds himself in the middle of a war between light and dark, wielding the only weapon capable of putting an end to it. This forces Sora into a position of immense responsibility that he takes up so quickly that many of us would forget by the first game's end that he was supposed to be a normal, lazy teenager who just wanted to explore the world with his two closest friends. And it's a demeanor that Sora rarely shows again, until Dream Drop Distance. Until Sora encounters the Final Fantasy crew, he wanders around Traverse Town in a daze. He doesn't know exactly what happened to his home, Riku, or Kairi, and he's pursued by more and more Heartless as he goes throughout the town. But as he's made aware of the declining number of worlds, increasing number of dark adversaries, and his new role as the Keyblade Master, Sora realizes that his home and maybe even his closest friends may have been lost to the darkness. But those possibilities don't stop Sora from hoping that Riku and Kairi are okay, or from looking for them, especially when given the chance to look for them in more worlds with Donald and Goofy. And if he manages to also find their missing king and save a few worlds along the way, then it's a win-win for everybody. The main thing we take for granted with Sora is that he's written into a typical hero role. He has everything he's known ripped away from him, but he discovers that he possesses the power to stop the evil that took it all away. And with the help of some new allies that he meets on his designated path, they'll eventually defeat the evil and save everyone. The end. But here's the thing, a lot of stories have a period of time where the hero gains some degree of control over the newfound powers, they get cocky, fail, and learn a valuable lesson for the next time, and then they kick ass. That's not exactly the case with Sora. He lost everything, got a giant magical sword key, and told he was the one and only person who could stop the increasing powers of darkness with said giant magic sword key and save everyone. And then set off to do that with Donald and Goofy in less than 24 hours, being forced to learn how to fight real monsters and to master the Keyblade along the way. No failures, only death. Sora's grasp on the responsibilities he's given and how quickly he rises to the occasion is, to me, truly remarkable. He knows he can no longer afford to be lazy. He, as the wielder of the Keyblade, must battle the darkness to save the remaining worlds. He can't be the same Sora that let Riku handle the work, the helpless, homeless victim of the Heartless's rampage, the weak boy that no one expects to be the Keyblade Master. He has to be the strong one, because no one else will do it for him. And he has to be the strong one because he's the only Keyblade wielder to face the darkness. He has to prove himself a hero. It's an extremely important decision that Sora makes in an extremely short amount of time. And Sora adjusts to his role pretty quickly. The first couple of worlds are a bit rough. He tries to help Alice at her unfair trial, only for her to get locked up and kidnapped. Jasmine is also kidnapped under his watch. He gets in a fight with Donald over landing in Deep Jungle, and while they made up, Riku, Kairi, and Mickey are now closer to being found in that world. And he's patronized by Phil, Hercules, and Hades in Olympus until the Hercules Cup. But even with those setbacks, Sora carries on, taking in the victories big and small. Two small victories come from Riku's appearance in Traverse Town. The first is just knowing that Riku was okay. And since Sora knew that Riku could handle himself, he knew he didn't need to worry about him as much as he needed to worry about Kairi now. He also chooses to see this meeting as a good sign for finding Kairi. The second is Sora showing off his skills when Riku let his guard down after falling back into his role of trying to do all the work. Sora, now used to taking on more responsibilities, shows Riku that this time he doesn't have to do everything. He chooses not to fall back into his role as the lazy bum. While great for Sora, I think this added more incentive to Riku's alliance with Maleficent. With Sora more responsible and competent, and with a new set of friends, Riku might have felt that he didn't have a purpose anymore. Sora didn't need him anymore, so all he had left was Kairi. So Riku goes off to smell the darkness and help Maleficent gather the Princesses of Heart. This puts him in Sora's path twice more before Hollow Bastion. The first is when he tries to take Pinocchio to learn from him how to restore Kairi's heart. He still tries to get him and Sora to work together, but his treatment of Pinocchio as simply an object worries Sora. At that point, Sora probably thought that Riku was using the darkness, but didn't say anything. All he knew was that the way Riku was acting was going to lead him and others into trouble. The second is Neverland, where Riku both shows Kairi and his new dark powers. Both in Monstro and in Neverland, Sora tries to talk some sense into Riku about his actions. By Neverland, Sora has seen so many users of the darkness get swallowed, and he doesn't want to see that happen to his best friend. Both talks are pretty blunt. In Monstro, Sora said Riku didn't have a conscience, and in Neverland, he called him out for being the dumb shit that he was. Riku calls out Sora's actions in both visits as well. Riku seems to think that Sora is just messing around with Donald and Goofy, showing off the Keyblade, and doesn't care about finding him or Kairi. Sora never gets to counter, but we know that Sora wanted to explain to Riku how much responsibility he had now. He had to defeat the Heartless, he had to seal the keyholes, he had to look out for a lot of other people. We also know that Sora was looking for his friends in every world he went to. He grasped at every straw he could get, and while he didn't get anywhere, he didn't give up hope. Riku either didn't understand that, or chose not to. I think he chose not to because he still felt betrayed. And going back to the purpose thing from earlier, Riku appeared to continue trying to fill his role of handling everything by finding Kairi by any means necessary. And because he succeeded, he tried to make Sora feel bad for not helping, for not doing quote-unquote his part. This obviously made Riku feel better and more powerful. And power is what Riku wanted since he was little, but he's not using it to protect all of his friends. The end of Neverland and the third visit to Traverse Town shows Sora in a funk. He's been betrayed by his best friend, Kairi is comatose, and no sign of Mickey has been found. He's understandably frustrated, worried, and sad. But Donald and Goofy remind Sora that he has just to keep on believing in something. Donald and Goofy show their belief in finding Mickey by following the Keyblade. And with theirs and Kairi's help, Sora starts to believe in himself. He's fought enough baddies to believe that he can stop Maleficent. He believes he's strong enough to face Riku and maybe talk some sense into him. And he believes that he can save Kairi. Now, it's important to point all of this out because literally 1 minute into Hollow Bastion, Sora has all of this ripped away from him. Riku realizes that he's the rightful owner of the Kingdom Key and takes it away from him, and then Donald and Goofy leave Sora behind to follow the Keyblade like Mickey told them to. Despite all the strength that Sora has accumulated, the belief in himself, it just wasn't enough. But seeing Beast's determination to find Belle, Sora realizes that he can't give up. He's gotta find Kairi even if it means going through his friends. And in one of my favorite moments in the Kingdom Hearts series, Sora gets ready to face Riku, Maleficent, and the Heartless with only the wooden sword. He doesn't have to go very far before encountering Riku again, who's now ready to take Sora down if he doesn't give up. The thing is though, Sora doesn't fight back. He admits that he might not be strong enough physically to defeat Riku. He doesn't believe in his own strength, but he believes in the strength of his friends. No matter what happens, they'll keep his heart alive. Sora's faith is rewarded when Donald and Goofy return to his side, leaving just the issue of the Keyblade. The bond and belief Sora had with his friends proved that Sora's heart, not his body, was stronger than Riku's. This proof returned the Keyblade to Sora, and that was when he was truly chosen by the Keyblade. The title of Keyblade Master has changed from its meaning in the first game. Originally it meant the Keyblade's Master, not a master at using the Keyblade. And I get a little annoyed at this change, because in this moment I felt that Sora became the Keyblade Master, not just a Keyblade Master. Sora was not past the power like Riku was. He was given the power by holding Ben's heart, but he wasn't formally chosen. Sora may have gotten the Kingdom Key by accident, but when he fought with it, and in Hollow Bastion for it, Sora earned the right to wield it. No one has earned that power more than Sora. Now if Yensid could realize that, that would be great. Now for the scene that has so much to talk about, Sora's sacrifice. Continuing with the belief topic, we see that Sora's belief in his friends is his reasoning for being okay with using the Keyblade of people's hearts on himself to free Kairi's heart. He even says this in the manga, as long as you two are around, there'll be a way. What this exactly means is unclear. Probably there'll be a way to bring Sora back. which at this time in Kingdom Hearts lore seemed impossible. But for sure, Sora knew that Donald and Goofy would keep Kairi safe. As a short tangent, gameplay-wise, I love this section. I loved playing as a Heartless even if it was short and you couldn't phase into the ground. While not pertinent to Sora's character, it does heavily tie into later events, and anyone not caught up or unclear on what exactly happens might want to know. I will be explaining the creation of Roxas and Naminé to anyone not clear on their unique existences. Let's start with Naminé. Even though Kairi's body was never consumed by the darkness when her heart was attacked and left it, Naminé is her nobody. The explanation for this can be found in the secret Ansem reports in Kingdom Hearts 2. Naminé is made from Kairi's heart, but from Sora's body and soul. A body and soul containing Kairi's heart left the realm of light. Therefore, the conditions of a creation of a nobody were met, and Naminé was born. Being the nobody of a princess of heart and born from Sora's body and soul, Naminé possesses special powers over Sora's memories, and the memories of those connected to Sora. And according to the secret Ansem reports, unlike most nobodies, Naminé wasn't born with Kairi's memories, but seems to have them in Chain of Memories days in Kingdom Hearts 2. No explanation is given for this, so I assume she learned everything by going through Sora's memories before his arrival in Castle Oblivion. The last two oddities about Naminé are due to her appearance, specifically her blonde hair and her birth in Castle Oblivion, not Twilight Town. I speculate that both are attributed to Ventus, whose heart was still in Sora's body when he became a Heartless, and whose body was in Castle Oblivion. Speaking of Ven's influence, it's most apparent in Roxas. Sora's discarded body still had Ven's heart in it, so when it reappeared in the realm between, aka Twilight Town, it took on Ven's appearance. Somewhere there's a thing that says in the Kingdom Hearts universe, the heart shapes the body, which is why even though Roxas is Sora's nobody, he has Ven's heart and appearance. Roxas was also born without memories due to Sora's short time as a Heartless. He gets them after Chain of Memories, but does not know that they come from his original self. Roxas, due to being the nobody of a Keyblade wielder, can use the Keyblade, and due to Ven's heart, he can conjure a second one and dual wield. Equally, due to Ven's heart, Roxas is able to feel emotions from his birth, or at least showed feeling them quicker than other nobodies. And by the end of Kingdom Hearts 2, he's grown his own heart, being the only nobody known to have two hearts. I stress that Roxas is not Ventus! Roxas is Sora's discarded body with Ven's heart in it. Circling back to the moment that Sora turned himself into a Heartless, we're going to talk about the uniqueness of his time as a Heartless. Because Sora intentionally turned himself into a Heartless, he retained his sense of self and his memories. This is indicated gameplay-wise as being able to control Sora's Heartless. Story-wise, by several members of Organization 13, Sora himself and Calm, and Ansem the Wise. In Kingdom Hearts 1, he said he was beginning to forget. This was retconned, but I'm going to go with that if Sora had spent a longer amount of time as a Heartless, he would have completely forgotten. Because of the minimal darkness in his heart, Sora becomes a shadow, the weakest of Heartless. And when Kairi saves Sora, she only returns his heart from the darkness, but her powers give Sora's heart a physical form. So from this point until the end of Roxas' story in Kingdom Hearts 2, Sora is actually just a walking heart. And here's where an interesting similarity is seen. Xehanort also intentionally reduced himself to just a heart, and his heartless Ansem retained his memories and sense of self. It wasn't until he possessed Riku that he gained a physical appearance, but that's a point we'll be looking into later. Bringing back the belief motif, we see a lot of it being directed towards Sora in Traverse Town Visit 3. Kairi believes that Sora will return to her when Riku is found and Ansem is defeated. Donald and Goofy believe that they and Sora will be okay even if the outcome of the final battle is unclear. The princesses believe in Sora's strength as the Keyblade Master in restoring the worlds, and the Final Fantasy crew believe in Sora's strength and his determination to save Riku and Mickey. It's remarkable to compare Leon's belief from beginning and end game. He went from thinking that the worlds were doomed just because the Keyblade chose a kid, to being absolutely sure that Sora would save Riku. Sora has proved himself a hero in the eyes of many. With Ansem's defeat and Riku and Mickey locked in the realm of darkness, while it didn't seem like it, Sora had a choice to make. He could return to the islands with Kairi, or look for Riku and help in the search for Mickey. And with the worlds returning, he had to make his decision fast. I imagine it wasn't easy. Of course he had to find Riku, but he had no idea if he could, and therefore had no idea if or when he'd ever see Kairi or his home again. But he chooses to go with Donald and Goofy, saying goodbye to Kairi as she returns to the islands where she'll be safe. However, they have no leads, only to look for the door to light, which they only have the king's word that it exists. But they gotta believe that they'll find their friends. It's all they have to go on until Pluto arrives with a note from the king. Sora, Donald, and Goofy follow their only lead, putting them on the path of new enemies. The beginning of Chain of Memories shows us a very confident Sora. He's proven himself a junior hero by preventing Ansem, Maleficent, and the Heartless from destroying all the worlds. He's also restored many worlds that were swallowed by the darkness, including his own, where Kairi waits safe and sound for his and Riku's return. With seemingly no impending threats and his closest friends by his side, Sora is confident that even though they have no leads, he, Donald, and Goofy can find Riku and the King as long as they stay positive and stick together. Sora has so much confidence in himself and in his friends he doesn't even acknowledge the organization as a threat at first. Even though he knows he was led to Castle Oblivion for their plans, the possibility of finding Riku and Mickey outweighs a possible trap. And while Sora does get discouraged when his memories begin to disappear and he struggles to remember the name of a suddenly recollected old friend, his confidence remains, with a little help from Donald, Goofy, and Jiminy. Yes, he exists. Beyond this confidence, we don't see much of a difference in Sora until he remembers the name of a girl he used to know on the islands. Naminé. When Sora remembers Naminé, it's only after the memory was forced out of him by Larxene, who not only teased him about not remembering her, but revealed Naminé was in the castle waiting to be rescued, and threatened to smash the good luck charm that Naminé gave to Sora that he didn't know he had on his person for 9 years, apparently. And it's at this moment that we see Sora get truly angry. He hits the charm out of Larxene's hand, challenges and yells at her even after she disappears. And while Sora has been seen frustrated, he's never shown to be angry until this moment. An anger that consumes him so fully that he continued to attack where Larxene had disappeared, hoping she'd reappear so he could fight her again. And it's this anger that fuels Sora to continue through the rest of the castle, even though he and his friends could lose almost all of their memories and may not even find the King and Riku. And then Riku shows up on the next floor. Sora is obviously shocked. How did Riku get out of the Realm of Darkness? How did he get into Castle Oblivion? Instead of answering Sora's questions, Riku is extremely antagonistic, claiming that Sora forgot all about him in his efforts to find Naminé, and it seems he's going to make himself an obstacle for Sora as he puts Sora at fault for Naminé's disappearance and won't let him near her. After Riku is defeated in battle, he retreats further into the castle, leaving his best friend confused and sad. A moment rarely seen in most Kingdom Hearts games, Sora is saddened to see that his best friend, while out of the Realm of Darkness, is still influenced by the darkness or maybe under the control of someone else. He's sad that Riku doesn't want to help him rescue Naminé, but wants to fight him instead, and claiming that Sora never cared about him. Donald and Goofy are worried as well. Riku and Mickey work together, and Riku's alliance with darkness can mean that their king is in danger. But Sora doesn't respond to this worry, and barely rallies when given the possibility that he could help Riku remember that they're friends. Sora does cheer up, but this scene has two different versions with two different interpretations. The original scene has Sora cheering himself up at Donald's insistence that he should sound more confident. He proclaims that he'll save Riku, Mickey, and Naminé blindfolded, challenging all of his enemies and restoring his confidence in the process. And while this is in character for Sora post-Neverland, Riacom's version shows Sora slower to cheer up, and he doesn't actually cheer himself up. It's an interesting change that provides an interesting interpretation. While Sora agrees that Riku can't be helped by staying sad, it's a hesitant agreement. But why? Well, I see it as Sora realizing that even though he and Riku were reunited and worked together for a brief moment after Ansem's defeat, they didn't actually resolve anything. Their paths were different, which led them to clashing in methods to saving Kairi, differences in ideals of light and darkness, physical altercations, and most damaging, blatant betrayal. The nature of their friendship changed so drastically that things couldn't possibly be the same between them. Sora thought it could, but this new altercation with Riku made him doubt that thought. So even if he did help Riku remember their friendship, would it mean that he and Riku could be best friends again? Or had too much happened between them? I imagine that's what Sora was thinking about before Donald and Goofy reminded him of their promise to keep smiling, which Sora responds with a small smile that shows a solemn resolve, not a flashy declaration of victory. This version of the scene, I feel, gives Sora a more realistic and relatable portrayal. When Sora meets Riku on the next floor, he tries to reason with him. He reminds Riku that Kairi and everyone else they know on the islands are waiting for both of them to come home, but Riku won't listen. He refuses Sora's invitation for reconciliation and vows he'll never return to the islands because he has to protect Naminé. This puts a heavy decision on Sora. He can leave Riku behind or convince Riku to fight alongside him. Sora chooses the latter by getting through to Riku the same way they settle all their differences, by beating the shit out of each other! Yay! Joking aside, this is actually a very well thought out solution. These two have been competing with each other their whole lives, so sparring with Riku like old times should get through to him. Unfortunately, this doesn't work. Riku still doesn't remember and again runs off. This failed attempt causes Sora to pause and try to understand what's going on. He realizes that he and Riku have the same goal, and that fighting each other over that goal doesn't make any sense. The only explanation that Sora can think of is that maybe Riku just doesn't care about him, Kairi, or anyone anymore. This is a shocking conclusion for Sora to come to, considering how much faith he's had in Riku this whole time, and his whole life. And after the events of Kingdom Hearts 1, Sora wasn't going to give up on Riku, but the last two meetings caused Sora to consider the worst about him. It's a subtle thing that I feel speaks volumes about what Sora doesn't say, that also shows how much Sora is changing as he goes up the castle. But it's a short moment, as Sora is reminded that he can't give up. He, Riku, and Naminé were never apart when they were little, so they shouldn't remain apart now. Feels like someone is missing from that group. Nah. Floor 10. This is where it all really begins. Our Mary group has lost 10 whole floors worth of memories, and are no closer to helping Naminé, Riku, or finding King Mickey. Donald, Goofy, and Jiminy are concerned by these facts, and ask Sora if they should turn back before they lose everything. But Sora can't, as he's remembered a promise to Naminé. A promise so important to him that he's willing to drag his friends higher up the castle, causing them to lose more and more of their memories, just to keep it. And while Donald, Goofy, and Jiminy are completely understanding of the situation, Sora is the one who doesn't seem to understand just how much Castle Oblivion has affected all of his friends, not just him, Riku, and Naminé. He just wants to save Naminé, and in true Sora fashion, he can't be swayed once he has a goal. It's in character, but it's a darker connotation. With Floor 10's end, Sora meets a new organization member, Vexen, and he has a mission: to prove Sora useless to the organization and discover what Marluxia's plan is for Sora. To accomplish his goal, Vexen goads Sora into fighting by claiming he was the one who reunited Sora and Riku, but refusing to tell Sora where Riku went. Sora's reaction to this news is significant. He immediately blames Vexen for the way Riku's been acting. But why is this significant? Because even though Vexen is clearly an organization member, he never presented himself as a threat or a villain to Sora. Vexen did not say he was the one who had changed Riku as Sora claims, he merely said he brought him to Sora. Vexen only presents himself as a threat after Sora's accusation. He immediately assumes the worst about Vexen, which is not Sora. Let's put this into perspective. Sora knew about Maleficent and her actions over the past 9 years from the Final Fantasy crew, and they may have even described her appearance. But when he first saw her in Agrabah, he asked if she was Maleficent. He did not immediately assume the worst about her because Sora gives everyone a chance. And with Larxene, the crew was cautious but still made sure she was with the organization before making a move, but still did not make a move until Larxene made herself a threat. But with Vexen, Sora accused him with no proof. While Vexen was there to test him, Sora was the one to make the first antagonistic move. It's a significant change in a short amount of time. After the fight, Vexen lures Sora into Twilight Town to prove that Sora is at the mercy of a memory that he no longer controls. Donald, Goofy, and Jiminy are confused by the town, as it was one they had no recollection of visiting, and thus assume that it is a place that Sora visited but forgot about. They link this with Sora's returning memories of Naminé, and when they get to the mansion, Sora does state that the town does start to feel familiar, but he also insists that it's a feeling or an idea that he's been there before, not the same as he remembered Naminé. Vexen chimes in by reminding Sora that the card was made from memories from the other side of his heart, meaning that the memories do exist within Sora, but in a different place, or in someone else connected to him. Roxas. Therefore, it is Sora's heart that remembers. But then another question. If all memories come from the heart, then why does Sora separate the feeling of remembering Twilight Town from his memories of Naminé? Vexen poses that one set of memories is fake, implying that it's the memories of Naminé. Sora, unwilling to accept that his memories of an important friend are fake, responds with the idea that the feeling associated with Twilight Town is a fake, a trick of the organization. This is the proof that Vexen was looking for to prove Sora was useless. He's bound by the chain of memories in his heart and refuses to look at what else may be there. A Keyblade wielder who's a slave to potential fake memories will be of no use to the organization, and therefore has no use existing. An idea Vexen attributes to both Sora and his Riku. Hearing that Vexen had claimed Riku and said he was nothing, Sora explodes in anger. Like his outburst at Vexen and Larxene earlier, he assumes the absolute worst about his enemy. He yells and blames Vexen for everything that has gone wrong and will prove that Vexen will not stand in his way in continuing to be the hero, to save Riku and Naminé. And to further back up how this is so un-Sora, in Teal's Chain of Memories fan dub, which everyone should watch and share everywhere, Blue Serix's bloopers for these lines included him saying that Sora needed to calm down and that he couldn't imagine Sora saying this stuff. Vexen is surprised that Sora retains much of his strength even at the mercy of his memory. Knowing that he is beat, Vexen begins to tell Sora about Marluxia's plans, but then is annihilated by Axel, which, the recon version of this scene is so much better. It is so fucking rad. Like, just that snap. Goodbye. Anyway, Sora, a bit traumatized by watching Vexen literally fade out of existence at the hands of a quote-unquote comrade, leaves Twilight Town and comes face to face with Riku again. Sora is upset to learn that Riku is still facing him as an enemy, showing Sora that he was wrong about his theory of Vexen controlling Riku, although not entirely untrue. Riku finally gives Sora a reason for the animosity. He made a promise to Naminé to protect her, and she gave him her good luck charm as a thanks. And Sora apparently hurt Naminé, so Riku is protecting her from him, not the organization. What Sora did is not explained in-game, but the Chain of Memories novel gives one. Sora ripped up one of Naminé's drawings because he didn't like how she drew him. This bullying by Sora caused Naminé to leave the islands, and it cost Riku one of his closest friends. This promise that Riku made is the exact same memory Sora described in Twilight Town earlier, and they both seem to have Naminé's one-of-a-kind good luck charm she's had since she was a baby. This causes yet another fight, and another defeat for Riku. He drops Naminé's charm, and it turns into a world card for Destiny Islands. Donald and Goofy, understandably confused, try to figure out what is going on, but Sora wants to continue, claiming the details don't matter, but his friends don't agree. He and Riku cannot have the same memory when they weren't both there, and Donald points this out by saying that they can't both be right. Sora's response is another instance of him assuming the worst, this time with his own friends. He thinks that they don't believe him just because Riku said he had the same memory. Taking it even further, he accuses Donald and Goofy of wanting him to abandon Naminé when they suggest that he should slow down and try to make sense of the situation. This is when Donald and Goofy finally claim that Sora has changed. He only seems to care about finding Naminé, even though he didn't know her name before entering the castle. He doesn't appear interested in reasoning with Riku anymore, or listening to reason from his closest friends. He doesn't care about assessing the situation anymore, how it's affecting his friends, or about helping them find the king. And he assumes his friends are talking him out of finding Naminé instead of assuming that his friends are worried about him. Nothing is getting through to Sora, so he basically tells Donald and Goofy to fuck off and goes ahead alone. Well, not entirely, as Jiminy appears to be living in Sora's hood. Jiminy also tries to reason with Sora, but Sora tells him to shut up too. Now, I want to put what just happened into perspective. Sora, who was willing to bet his heart on his friends keeping him alive, who continued to see the good in Riku after he betrayed him, who decided to help Donald and Goofy find the king instead of going home with Kairi, just abandoned his two closest friends to find a girl he knew 10 years ago because he took their attempts for reasoning with him as them wanting him to abandon said girl. He wouldn't listen to anyone, not even the official Disney conscience that lives in his jacket, and plans to go through the rest of the castle alone. Sora has done a complete 180. He's not even Sora anymore. And this is the biggest proof against the claim that Sora's character hasn't changed or developed. Using Riku's card, Sora returns home to Destiny Islands, but his time at Castle Oblivion has taken its toll on his memory. He didn't even recognize anyone at first, not even Riku. But none of that matters because he's finally reunited with Naminé, the girl he fought through organization members and his own best friends for. The girl who was so important to him that he pushed away all his friends just to see her. He was so happy, but that had to be taken away too. Naminé reveals that they never actually knew each other, and that she wasn't the most important person to him. Sora denies it. He has memories of them. He has her good look charm. He came all this way because she's that important. But his true memories kick in before he could forget the one person who really was the most special to him, Kairi. He can't remember her name, or really anything about her, but he knows that Naminé was right. When Sora tries to get answers from Naminé, Riku intervenes, and after a dirty trick, incapacitates Sora. Riku is about to finish him off, but Naminé stops him, shattering the chain of memories in his heart. Seeing his best friend collapse on the floor, Sora turns on Naminé, assuming the worst of her, that she was the cause. Granted, she did yell at Riku to stop, and he did, but Sora spent this whole time looking for Naminé, and immediately turned on her when she did something he didn't like. He's now officially turned on every one of his friends. Larxene then shows up to explain that all of Sora and Riku's memories of Naminé are fake, and Riku is also a fake, a replica made by Vexen. She and Marluxia were using Naminé's powers to turn Sora into their puppet, and with everything now undone by Axel letting Naminé go, Larxene has come to eliminate Sora. Naminé tries to shield Sora even though she's the cause of his current state, but is knocked aside by Larxene. Sora is upset at Naminé getting hurt, which Larxene points out as odd since they don't actually know each other. Even though Sora understands that, he still considers the promise he made to protect Naminé to be real, and one he'll keep. This is one of the most heartwarming scenes to me, as it shows that deep down, no matter how much she's changed, Sora's loyalty and faith in his friends is still inside him. And that faith is rewarded like it was in Hollow Bastion, as Donald and Goofy finally catch up with Sora and stand by his side. Together they beat Larxene. All for one and one for all, right? Afterwards, Naminé explains that Marluxia threatened to keep Naminé locked away if she didn't rewrite Sora's memories, but once he's defeated, she can fix everything. But Naminé realizes her being lonely was a weak reason for her tampering with their memories, and she doesn't expect forgiveness. But Sora tries to cheer her up, much to her surprise. He's not happy about his memories being messed with, but he says that his new ones still feel right, and so he'll continue to keep his promise to protect Naminé, even if it wasn't real. But he does make her a real promise before going, that he'll be okay when he faces Marluxia. Now accepting that his memories are fake, Sora tries to remember who it was that was the most special to him. When his memory fails him, he asks Donald and Goofy for help, but they can't. In the manga, they state that they don't even remember who they were looking for in the castle. It's unclear if they remember the king in the game at this point. They can't seem to remember anything, but find the courage to continue on in their promise to always remain friends. But guess who aren't friends? Axel and Marluxia. Axel's mission to eliminate the traitors of the organization puts him in conflict with Marluxia, who is going to use Sora to take it under his control. Axel will even go through Naminé to complete his mission, which Marluxia uses to his advantage to pit Axel and Sora against each other. Axel teases Sora about doing Marluxia's bidding, but Sora counters by saying he'll take them both out. He's nobody's puppet. With Axel's defeat, Sora finally faces Marluxia, who still sees a way to use Sora as his puppet. He orders Naminé to erase Sora's memory, destroying his heart in the process and allowing him to be reborn as Marluxia's perfect puppet. Sora still wants to keep Naminé safe, so he tells her to do it, even with the costs. He believes that his friends can help him rebuild his memory, and that faith in his friends rewards him yet again with the appearance of the Riku replica, who will also keep his phantom promise to Naminé. And Sora gives him that opportunity by asking Repliku to protect Naminé as he goes to face Marluxia. After Marluxia is defeated, Repliku goes off to find answers about his existence. Sora offers his view, that what Repliku feels and remembers are a part of his own unique heart. Even though Sora knows this Riku is a replica, he still considers him his own person, an opinion he only shows to a few other organization members until 3D. With that, Sora is presented with his choice. Retrieve his old memories, but lose his memories of Castle Oblivion and Naminé, or keep his new memories, giving up the old ones. This is a tough decision for Sora because he knows how much Naminé wanted to be his friend, and how much effort she put into making them friends. Even though they weren't actually friends in his memories, Sora still considers Naminé as someone important to him. But there's something else I think Sora considered when he made his choice. What kind of person he wanted to be. Sora's answer isn't, please return my memories, it's, put me back the way I was. Sora had to decide if he wanted to be who he was before Castle Oblivion, or after. After all, he went through a pretty dramatic personality shift. This game shows that changing someone's memories changes who they are as a person, and it changes what's in their heart. And Sora had to consider which him he wanted. The caring, considerate, and loyal all-around person that he was before Castle Oblivion, or the angry, obsessed, but still caring person who once abandoned everyone that he'd become in this castle. It was so much more than just memories at stake for Sora, and in the end he wanted to be the person he was, even if it meant giving up Naminé. Naminé takes this as her not being truly important to Sora, but he wanted her to know that he'd look for her when he'd wake up. With the knowledge that the memories of Castle Oblivion will remain in his heart, he was confident that he'd eventually remember his promise to Naminé, and thank her for restoring his memories. This section also contains a lot of speculation that I can't prove, unless there's something backing me up in the Japanese-only Ultimanias. Thank you, Nomura. But given Sora's character and the analysis of him thus far, I do not feel that my points are invalid. Personally, I feel like Days probably contains some of the most unnoticed character insight on Sora, both on his kindness and what pain he hides behind that smile. Even though the game focuses on Organization 13 from Roxas's birth to the beginning of Kingdom Hearts 2, Sora is still an influential part of the story. The biggest thing, of course, is the fact that Sora gave Xion an identity. Xion's contact with Roxas while Sora's memories were being scattered in Chain of Memories resulted in not only Xion receiving the Keyblade as per Xemnas' original designs, but also an identity. Even though Xion's appearance was always based off of someone else's memory, and the nature of those borrowed memories eventually led to her end, she still had her own identity. While she was a replica, she wasn't a copy of Sora, Roxas, or even Kairi. The memories she made with Roxas, Axel, Riku, and the other members of the organization were unique, and allowed for her own unique heart to grow. Even though Xion's story was tragic, her last words proved that she was happy she got to exist as she did in the first place, which leads me to believe that Sora giving Xion an identity wasn't a complete accident. The fact that Sora felt a familiarity with Twilight Town and Chain of Memories means that Sora's heart felt a connection with his discarded body, Roxas, and the memories he was accumulating in his new, growing heart. So I don't think it's that far of a stretch to speculate that Sora's heart felt the emptiness within Xion, who was supposed to be a replica of him and Roxas, and wanted to fill that emptiness. Diz said that once Sora sees the heart in something, it then becomes real. So we could say that Sora's heart could see the potential in the then empty Xion and gave her and the others a way to see that potential. That speaks to how far Sora's kindness stretches. His heart saw a person when there wasn't one, and allowed that person to come into being by lending it his memories at the unintentional cost to himself. Roxas, being Sora's nobody, is obviously also affected by Sora's memory even though he isn't aware of who or where they came from. But the way they begin to affect Roxas towards the end of the game is what I find the most interesting. In his diary, he describes them as nightmares. He wakes up crying from experiencing Sora's memories in his dreams, and we're shown this when Roxas wakes up crying from reliving when Sora lost the Keyblade in Hollow Bastion. When we, the player, first encounter upon this moment in Kingdom Hearts 1, we feel betrayed and abandoned. Donald and Goofy, who had said they would stick with us, leave us to follow the Keyblade, now in the hands of our protagonist's best friend turned villain. But Sora and Beast's strong wills and determination rally us, getting us pumped to face whatever dangers may lay ahead, Keyblade or no Keyblade. However, Roxas's tears show how Sora really felt in that moment. Sora, who had taken up the mantle and was being praised as a hero, who thought he had finally got out of Riku's shadow, who thought he could save his friends, had it all ripped away from him in an instant. He had been betrayed by his best friend, abandoned by his two other closest friends, and could no longer fight. He thought he was special, only to realize he wasn't in the most crushing way. And at that moment, he was completely alone, abandoned and betrayed. And we only see how crushing that was to Sora through Roxas, just like how Roxas showed some of his sadness through Sora in Kingdom Hearts 2 and Dream Drop Distance. And knowing how devastating that moment really was to Sora makes his resolve all the more amazing. Sora was so sad in that moment that he wanted to give up, accept his fate as a fluke of a Keyblade wielder. But with Beast's help, Sora realized he couldn't and shouldn't give up until he rescued his friends and returned home. A goal that Sora continued towards unshaken until the end of Kingdom Hearts 2. But from Roxas' journal entries, it wasn't just that memory that caused him to cry. From what it sounds like, almost every memory resulted in that. Which means that Sora, despite what we saw in Kingdom Hearts 1, really had a tough time dealing with the loss of his home, family, and friends. But Sora persevered through his pain because he knew how important he was to the fight against darkness, and tried to enjoy it as much as he could. It's actually amazing, and I don't know about anybody else, but I think Sora needs a big hug. Sora gets a much better start to this journey. He's visited by the king, which means that Riku must also be out of the realm of darkness, and he's given all the information about his main enemy, Organization 13, that's available. Maleficent reappears later, but she's only a minor inconvenience and actually helps Sora later on. Taking in all the news about his new enemy and following Jensen's guidance, Sora, Donald, and Goofy go from world to world destroying Heartless, opening gates, not closing keyholes, and stopping Organization 13's plans in each world. The gang doesn't have a defined place they're heading to, as they don't know where the world that never was is, so they just go where the Keyblade takes them. Because of this, I think it's why we see Sora acting a bit more silly, trying to enjoy himself more than he did in Kingdom Hearts 1 and Chain of Memories. I can only name a few instances before this game where we see Sora acting this silly. He gives Donald shit about hitting him as a Heartless in Chain of Memories. One of his reasonings for helping Jack in Kingdom Hearts 1 was to see the Heartless dance. He did a goofy smile and just kinda laid on Donald and Goofy when he fell on them in Neverland. In comparison to this game, Sora mocks Leon, makes funny faces, crashes a dance party, chases Phil and Abu around, sings, gets super excited about being a pirate and seeing Santa, gets into a fist fight with Yao, almost gets into a fight with Cypher, and wants to be king of Pride Rock. And in my favorite addition to Sora's character, he's sassy. He sasses Riku, Mickey, the Beast, Barbossa, Zigbar, Demyx, Sark, Maleficent, Pete, Ursula, Hades, which holy fuck Sora, that's a god you're sassing, the Peddler in Agrabah, and Jafar. The sass to Jafar is my favorite, by the way. Don't mess with street rats. Granted, manga Sora in Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 shows this level of silly and sass, but game-wise it's more prominent in 2. And it appears we're seeing it return in Kingdom Hearts 3, and I'm so happy. This kind of sass was only seen twice before Kingdom Hearts 2 from what I can find, to Riku and Vexen. As for why Sora suddenly got sassy, I think it's a combination of him enjoying himself and his confidence. Sora's obviously confident enough to take these people on verbally and physically, but doesn't seem as overly confident as he was in Chain of Memories. I don't know if it's just me, but I get a different vibe from Sora's confidence between the two games. In Chain of Memories, he almost seems cocky, like he was sure he could beat anyone no sweat. He's like that in 2, but it just doesn't seem the same. Almost mellower. And I think this has to do with his experience in Castle Oblivion. While Sora isn't supposed to remember what happened there, we do see him exhibit similar behavior in this game as he did in Chain of Memories. The message of Chain of Memories was that what's forgotten isn't lost. So the experience of Castle Oblivion still remains in Sora's heart, and this mellowed confidence could be a result of the lessons he learned. He's matured a bit. Thank you, Teal, for the help with this, because you literally put my thoughts into words. Thank you. But even though he's confident enough to goof off and throw shade, Sora still takes his position as a hero seriously. Any sign of Organization 13 and it's all business. He's guarded, ready to fight, but not engaging unless people around are safe or he's attacked first. And when someone looks like they're in trouble, Sora rushes to help. His efforts eventually earn him a place in the stars as a true hero. Took you long enough, Zeus. Despite all that, Sora doesn't really get any new information on the organization, Riku, or Mickey until the second visit to Hollow Bastion. And just before that, Sora learns that Kairi was kidnapped. And Sora is really sad about all this. Like, he's crying in the gummy ship, thinking that it was all his fault because he's the key that connects everything. He gets a pep talk from Donald and Goofy, but now Sora has gotten desperate. With no computer skills, he tries to use Ansem the Wise's computer to figure out where the entrance to the Realm of Darkness is so that he could go there and find Riku and Kairi. He considers jumping into a dark portal to follow Saïx to the world that never was. He begs Axel to tell him where Kairi is, and he begs on his knees in front of Saïx to be led into the Realm of Darkness to find his friends. Every time he asks someone about Riku, they don't know where he is. And Mickey says he can't help either. By the third visit to Twilight Town, Sora is grasping at straws just to make himself sure that Riku and Kairi are okay. Especially for Riku, whom he hadn't found any clue until Mickey let slip of his promise. There were instances where Sora was on the fence about whether he was seeing Riku in Hollow Bastion and the Land of Dragons, but Saïx's taunt of something happening to Riku and Roxas claiming he defeated Riku didn't help Sora at all. And also by the third visit to Twilight Town, Sora has shown some fatigue. Aladdin saw it and tried to comfort him. Sora makes a comment about whether he'll ever see his home again in Port Royal. Also in Port Royal and the end of the second visit to Hollow Bastion, Sora is frustrated at helping the organization when he's trying to help other people. He's been at this for over a year now. It's understandable that he's getting frustrated. Something else happens to Sora in Hollow Bastion, and a lot of people point this out. Sora begins to treat the members of the organization with an extreme amount of hostility. He picks on Demyx for his strength, constantly pointing out that nobodies don't exist and don't have hearts, calls Xemnas nobody in a way that almost sounds racist. And I'm pretty sure that he was going to cuss out Saïx after begging. A lot of people have said that this is out of character for Sora, especially when we consider the beginning and end of the game where Sora seemed sad that nobodies didn't exist, and when he tried to reason with Xemnas by getting him to remember what emotions other than anger or hate he felt as a somebody. And they're right, this is very out of character for Sora, unless we consider the conditions in which the behavior arose. He learned that a friend whom he deeply cared for was being held captive by members of the organization, who he knew or had a suspicion they were different beings from him, and were trying to use his power for whatever goal they had. And after he battles the first organization member he encounters after learning this news, he remains angry and wants to fight anyone in his way. This should sound familiar. It's exactly how Sora acted after learning about Naminé. Like, even their angry movesets are the same after the battles with Larxene and Demyx. So it's not actually out of character. We're seeing the re-emergence of the anger Sora showed in Chain of Memories. And Saius confirmed this by stating that Kairi was the fire to Sora's anger, and keeping her locked up would keep him angry, causing him to defeat more Heartless. And because Sora's memories are not being tampered with this time, his anger doesn't last, and he's much more willing to listen to his friends. Strangely enough, Sora doesn't show this hostility towards Axel, even after discovering that he was the one who kidnapped Kairi, and even accepts Axel's help later on. Not exactly too hard to figure out, this is because of Roxas, whose emotions and memories have been shown to affect Sora in Twilight Town. Later on, Sora learns that he has a nobody, and wants to meet him, not knowing he already had and fought against him. When they meet before the final battle, no words are exchanged, and Sora would have to wait another year before getting to actually talk to Roxas. Also before the final battle, Sora finally sees Naminé again, but doesn't appear to remember her. But after that meeting, Sora said that he wanted to thank her, but couldn't until he knew that all dangers were dealt with. So Sora does seem to remember her, but wanted to make sure that nothing got in the way of him fulfilling his promise to her. But since she reunited with Kairi, he never got the chance. Speaking of reunions, we finally get to talk about the reunion of Sora, Riku, and Kairi. Knowing that Kairi was safe up until her kidnapping, seeing her not only okay in the world that never was, but also kicking ass with a Keyblade, Sora is extremely happy. But hearing that Kairi began looking for him and Riku, Sora feels extremely guilty. He worried Kairi, felt that he was the reason that she was in danger, and didn't even get any info about Riku. But Kairi doesn't care, she's just glad that Sora is there, and gives him a hug. She also doesn't care, because she actually found Riku first! Sora's reaction to being reunited with Riku is a lot more emotional than his with Kairi, which for some reason people attribute that to Sora not caring about Kairi as much as Riku, which is really fucking stupid. And it's also the reasoning that Riku had for betraying Sora, which was also fucking stupid. I emphasized that up until the second visit to Twilight Town, Sora knew Kairi was safe, and once he knew she wasn't, he went Chain of Memories level mad. And when they were finally reunited, Sora saw that she was unharmed, and was, that's it. She was unharmed, she was great, she was fine, he was glad. But with Riku, from the end of Kingdom Hearts 1 until now, Sora had no definitive proof that he was even okay. He spent so much time looking for his best friend since childhood, who was swallowed by the darkness at one point, and who no one aside from Mickey was able to confirm to have seen. And when they're finally reunited, Riku has taken on Ansem's form, indicated that he still needed the darkness to fight. And because of this, Riku didn't want to be found, making it that much harder on Sora. But just knowing that Riku was okay, and in front of him, Sora broke down, as he and anyone should when being reunited with their best friend that way. It's a huge weight off of Sora's shoulders. Now all they have to do is defeat the remaining organization members, and they can all go home. The post-final Xemnas fight scenes are some of my favorite scenes in the game, and contain the most heavy implications for Sora's character. And I'm shocked at how no one else I've encountered has noticed them. So, Xemnas gets his shit kicked in and the boys are trapped in the realm of nothingness. Alright, cool. Riku, injured and tired, doesn't see a point in continuing on as the darkness will eventually swallow them. Sora, always thinking positive, picks Riku up and begins walking, hoping that they'll eventually find a way out. It's here that Riku realizes that Sora is stronger than he is, in physical strength, in resolve, and in heart. And Sora, unlike Riku, is able to see a path forward. The statement, "I always thought I was better at stuff than you," is Riku's admission that Sora was able to do something he couldn't, and was stronger than Riku. And later, Riku admits that he was actually envious of Sora's follow-his-heart mentality and easygoing personality. Sora is stunned. He couldn't understand how Riku, whom he admitted to admiring and wanting to be like, could be jealous of him. And hearing how much Riku appreciated him, Sora responds with, "I guess I'm okay the way I am." This is the biggest implication that no one seems to get. What this line means is that up until now, Sora did not like himself in some way. He had confidence in himself, sure, and he realized he was important to saving countless lives, but he did not think he was cool enough or whatever for Riku to be jealous of him. Whatever it was, his hair, the way he talked, his personality, it doesn't matter. What matters is that Sora had issues accepting himself. I was so stunned when hearing this line. All I could think of was, how could you not like Sora? The kid is a precious ball of sunshine. How could he not like himself? Well, the thing is, despite all he went through, Sora is still just a teenager. A giant key sword wielding teenager, but a teenager nonetheless. He's had to deal with friend issues, taking on new responsibilities, leaving home for the first time, and unbeknownst to us until now, issues with accepting himself. Take away the magic and very extreme circumstances, and we see that these are all normal situations for a teenager or a young adult to deal with. I'm still dealing with this shit. There's always something about ourselves we don't like, be it how we look, how we act, whatever. It's normal. It feels really shitty, but it's normal. And it takes a lot for us to be okay with some part of us that we don't like. And sometimes it just takes someone saying something we needed to hear, even though we didn't know we needed it. And that's what Riku did for Sora. So Sora, at the edge of the realm of darkness, after saving the world and his friends twice, finally realized that he was okay just the way he was. He didn't have to try to be someone else anymore. Just being him was fine. Speaking of acceptance and stuff being normal, it's also normal for us to waver in our beliefs and accept that some things are out of our control. For Sora, this is when he looked out towards the endless sea in the dark margin. After all he'd done and all he had fought for, Sora saw no way forward. He and Riku were trapped in the realm of darkness. And Sora says, maybe the darkness has gotten to me too. Despite what many say about Sora, he's not one-dimensional. He's not untouchable when it comes to the darkness. Dream Drop Distance proves that. And he's not impervious to doubt. This isn't the first time Sora's questioned his role or his journey. Remember Port Royal and the aftermath of the Battle of 1,000 Heartless? To me, Sora is admitting that negativity and hopelessness, i.e. dark emotions, get to him. Sora's resolve weakened for only a moment. Then he saw Riku on the ground and rushed to help. Hearing Riku give up, Sora seemed like he was going to try and talk Riku out of it, but instead agreed with him. While not exactly giving up, Sora accepted that he and Riku were stuck on the other side, and that their role in the realm of light was finished, and that there was nothing else to do. It's beyond his control, and Sora accepts that, and whatever comes next for him and Riku. But if Sora basically gave up, how did his heart open the door to light? Kairi. Kairi is Sora's light within the darkness, and her letter reminded him that his journey wasn't over. He still had to bring Riku home and return the good luck charm to Kairi. The renewed resolve in his heart served as the light that opened the door and brought him and Riku home. Coded is going to be a bit different. I'm only going to touch upon a few things here and actually give a theory about Xehanort's involvement in the game. Coded does mainly two things. First, it gives the insight on the actual dynamic of Sora and Riku's friendship. We get to see them actually getting along and work together for a change. The second is introducing the concept of hurt and how it affects Sora. It's revealed that Naminé found other people's memories inside of Sora's heart while she was repairing his memory. These would be Roxas, Xion, and Ben's memories. The memory showed Naminé that her, these three people, and the four others Sora was connected to through them were still hurting, and needed to be saved from their sad ends. But to help them, Sora would have to accept the pain that comes from their memories, but if handled incorrectly, it could potentially break Sora's heart. Naminé's solution was for Data Sora to face these memories in the journal, which added the bugs to the data. When they were cleared, Data Sora was able to confront the source of the hurt through a crash course in Castle Oblivion by Professor Data Roxas. Confronted with the consequences of hurt, Data Sora is given a decision: either keep the hurt and have it drag him down into the darkness, or let them go and forget the people associated with the hurt. For a moment, Sora actually considers giving up the memories. What was the point of him being hurt over people he didn't remember? But Mickey chimes in to help, letting Sora know that even if he forgot someone, they might not forget him. And that's when Sora realizes that the hurt doesn't take away, it just gives him something else, something he can use to connect with people. And so Sora decides to keep the hurt, even if it costs him. The chance to make a connection with a friend outweighs the cost. Data Sora's decision allows Data Naminé to know that the real Sora can make the same decision, She also makes sure to let Mickey know that Sora doesn't have to face the memories alone, which lowers the chances of him falling to darkness trying to accept them. With the purpose of the journal exploration completed, Mickey writes to Sora about what lies ahead. As I mentioned, I'm going to be offering a theory. In the beginning of Coded, in the Awakening Station, there was someone in a black coat there. When we see another person in a black coat, it was Data Riku, so it's assumed that it was Riku in the first place. However, during the debugging Riku level, this was revealed not to be the case, so I assumed it was Roxas, and the final boss of Coded confirmed that assumption for me. However, in the cutscene of the many Soras in Traverse Town in 3D, young Xehanort says, "You've been here many times. Your first journey, your voyage through memories, in the datascape." No form of Xehanort was seen in Coded, so how come he lists the datascape? Xigbar asked Sora why he kept going through his dreams, and Sora gave the same reply as his data version, that his heart ached. Xigbar expected this answer, meaning Organization 13 had to have known about the memories within Sora and how dangerous they could be to him, which was only revealed in Coded. The figure in the coat in the beginning of Coded was never revealed, and the new organization seemed to have known about what went on in the datascape. So I propose that the first black-coated person was a member of Organization 13, maybe Data Ansem or young Xehanort. It's the only way they could have gotten this information. A Xehanort had to be in the journal, which makes the Light Side's efforts to be a step ahead worthless. But this is just a theory. Must resist game theory joke. Whether this is true remains to be seen. Dream Drop Distance is at a tie for my second favorite Kingdom Hearts game, its tie being the original Kingdom Hearts. I felt like 3D did a lot of good things gameplay-wise, and I honestly love the story. It is the Kingdom Hearts game that made me feel so many emotions, mainly fear and disbelief. But it's often come into ridicule for the time travel thing, which I do admit I hated, but only because there were enough plot holes in Kingdom Hearts where time travel just barely fit. But, it did also make the story more confusing. But it's also come into ridicule for Sora's behavior. Unfortunately, many Kingdom Hearts fans wrote off Sora as being completely stupid in this game, but I personally never saw that. Let's get the main issue out of the way. Literally none of the protagonists knew that Xehanort was gathering his 12 other selves at the same time as the Mark of Mastery exam, nor could they have even guessed that Xehanort wanted Yensid to give Sora and Riku the Mark of Mastery exam that would require them to travel back in time to when their world was destroyed to cross over into the realm of sleep. No one knew that their efforts to be prepared for Master Xehanort's return would be all according to his plan. So, obviously, Sora did not know the whole test was a trap for him to become the 13th member of the true Organization 13. He just thought it was going to be a simple mission. Unlock the keyholes of 7 sleeping worlds and return with a fancy title of Keyblade Master. No Heartless, no Maleficent, no Organization 13, no man behind the curtain pulling the strings. Nothing that would cause Sora to believe he had to put in more effort than he felt he needed, or for him to get serious. Sora wasn't dumb or oblivious, he was relaxed. After all, he already stated he felt like the test was a formality, that he had already proved himself. He didn't feel like he had to take the test, so he didn't need to get worked up when something was a little weird. But do you know who did want to take the test? Who really felt like he needed to be tested whether he was worthy to wield the Keyblade? Riku. Riku still felt like the darkness controlled him. He wanted to see if he was still the boy who wanted the strength to protect his friends. The goal of the exam was different for Riku, which could make the exam more dangerous for him. There was more at stake, and Riku wasn't even sure he would pass, but he was willing to try. Sora, on the other hand, is and always has been confident in Riku's skills. He was hoping that Riku would agree that they had proved themselves as Keyblade Masters, but seeing how much the opportunity to prove himself meant to Riku, and the possible dangers his choice could bring him, Sora decided to join Riku in the Mark of Mastery exam. He wanted to be with Riku through the test to let Riku know he wasn't alone, and to make sure that this time he could save his best friend if he fell to darkness. When Sora realized that he and Riku had been separated, I feel like he went on autopilot. He had a task to complete, but he also needed to find Riku, and if he could help others along the way, then he would. which, when you think about it, it's kind of sad that Sora is used to this. Anyways, enter Neku. Literally Sora's polar opposite. A bit of background on Neku for those who haven't played The World Ends With You. Neku is not a people person. He feels like he doesn't need other people, especially friends, who could possibly turn on him. He isn't cooperative with anything or anyone unless he absolutely has to be. When he's brought into the Reaper's game, it takes him a while to realize he has to cooperate with his partner in order to survive. And when that set in, he was willing to be on a team even if he didn't get along with his partner. Because Kingdom Hearts versions of Final Fantasy characters are alternate realities of their game counterparts, and because Neku knows Joshua while still being Shiki's partner, we can assume this for the World Ends With You characters. This Neku knows he needs his game partner, but is still not the friendliest of sorts. When Sora is made aware of Neku's situation, he's happy to help Neku survive the game, but Neku dismisses Sora's help. He needs his partner, not Sora. So Sora offers to help Neku find Shiki as a friend would, but Neku dismisses that as well. After all, he was going to offer Sora to young Xehanort to get him and Shiki back home. He didn't need to become friends with Sora. But what Sora knew that Neku didn't was that Neku was in need of a friend, someone who would be there for him no matter what he did. He also knew that deep down Neku was a good person, which is why Sora dismissed the idea of Neku and young Xehanort being on the same side even after knowing the two of them had made a deal. Neku stood up for him too. When young Master Xehanort backed out on their deal, Neku stepped in and prevented Sora from getting hurt. It was the only proof that Sora needed. Neku explained what happened to Sora and apologized, not expecting to be forgiven. But Sora forgave Neku because that's what he needed, because that's what friends do. And slowly Neku begins to open up. He accepts Sora's help during the second visit to Traverse Town, announces that Joshua is his friend to Sora, and confirms that as a fact later to Joshua with some very Sora-ish words. Although if you play The World Ends With You, it's kind of, more like Neku towards endgame. After all, Joshua needed a friend too. Sora saw it, but Neku this time was the one to be there for him. Speaking of Joshua, no one ever seems to talk about how Sora was suspicious of Joshua when they first met. The guy pops out of nowhere and knows Sora's name, similar to how Neku and Sora met, but Sora isn't as friendly towards him as he was with Neku. Neku claims Joshua is his friend, but Sora still interrogates him, indicating that he didn't entirely trust Joshua. While Joshua is still a mystery to Sora, after hearing his attempts to save the World Ends With You cast, he trusts Joshua as an ally and friend. So obviously Sora does not trust every total stranger he meets. The most obvious example in this game would be young Xehanort, whom he never trusted at all, and another example is Frollo and Phoebus. Frollo was hostile towards Sora from their first meeting, and hearing about his treatment of Quasimodo, Sora obviously wasn't going to trust him. Knowing that Phoebus took orders from Frollo from their first meeting, Sora wasn't willing to trust him either. But when Phoebus explained his predicament and what actions he was taking to stop Frollo, Sora, like he did with Joshua, trusted Phoebus as an ally and friend. Sora isn't overly trusting or oblivious. All he needs is a good reason to trust or distrust. It's how Sora's always been, and it's the nature of his heart that Ansem the Wise says makes it uncorrupted. A heart that's willing to see the good before the bad. A heart that will not judge someone else through dark lenses. A heart that will always give someone a chance if they want it. Sora will also give someone a chance if he feels like that person needs it. And here I bring up, in my opinion, one of the saddest examples. Tron, or Rinzler. When Sora learned that Tron had been reprogrammed into Rinzler by Clue, he was determined to get Tron back. But when Rinzler attacked him and Korra after Sora tried to reason with him, Korra implied that Rinzler would probably not listen to what Sora had to say. Sora's reply, "He just needs time, that's all," speaks from his experience with Riku in Kingdom Hearts 1. He's already had to deal with a close friend influenced by someone who turned against him, and Sora wanted to give Tron his chance to regain himself like Riku did. He didn't want to fight another friend. It was what he was trying to avoid until he absolutely had to. But here was the issue that Sora never realized, and I don't fault him for this because it isn't the most obvious. This Tron in the grid wasn't the Tron he met in Hollow Bastion. Space Paranoids is a modified copy of the original program, which would become the grid. The world containing the grid fell to darkness and eventually into the realm of sleep. Therefore, the events of Space Paranoids did not happen in the grid, and Space Paranoids Tron is not the same as the Grid Tron. The Grid Tron never met Sora before his visit, and could not be reasoned with by remembering a friendship he never had. But if that's the case, why did Tron save Sora from Clu's attack and reach for his hand, you may ask? Well, Tron was a hero who helped programs and users alike, so he could have just saved Sora like a hero would. He could have went on autopilot hero when Sora freed him from Clu's control, but I have my own theory. Before Clu attacks, we see Sora as he was in Space Paranoids before he seemed to reset Tron's code with the Keyblade. I don't know if this was intentional, but I think Sora channeled his memories from Space Paranoids into the Keyblade, which he used to reset Tron, and wrote his memories into Tron's code. There's honestly no proof of this, but the way Tron saved Sora and reached out for him felt personal, like he was reaching out for a close friend. It's a feeling I don't think I would have felt if Tron had just been reset to Gridtron. And while Sora couldn't save Tron, he managed to look on the bright side. Tron was still there inside his heart, where he waits to be freed from Clu completely. However, this experience puts Sora into the path of young Xehanort yet again, along with Xemnas. All of Sora's encounters with the organization members in this game are all planned to guide Sora towards the path they set for him at the beginning of the exam. Every encounter plants seeds of doubt in Sora's mind. Is his heart a prison? Do his memories really belong to him? Is he really like a nobody, as Xemnas claims? Eventually Sora asks why young Xehanort is following him around, who he was and what his goal was, only to be met with another cryptic answer: sleep on. All the answers could be found if Sora kept dreaming, if he continued to dive further into sleep. And fortunately for Xehanort, that's exactly what Sora did, leading him to the world that never was. Waiting for him was everybody's favorite one-eyed sharpshooter, Xigbar. Ziggy explains to Sora that his path on the Mark of Mastery exam has been intercepted and guided by members of the true Organization 13, and that there was no going back home. Sora takes this news remarkably well, and seems to accept that he can't go home. If it's just him and the organization inside a dream, then nothing is getting in Sora's way of taking them out like he did before. Before he could do anything, young Xehanort appears again, leading Sora further into dreams. The first two dreams show off how much control the organization had over the situation. They had planned very far back in time and knew what places in time to exploit. The third dream was to let Sora fall further into sleep by chasing the visions in his dreams. Either he followed Donald and Goofy, or Mickey and Pluto. However, before he could do anything, Riku had found him and tried to wake him up. This caused Sora to enter a state between wake and sleep, his environment a twisted version of the world that never was, and his dreams formed from the memories sleeping way down in his heart. Here, the first person he runs into is Naminé, the girl he fought so hard for and had changed so much for, the friend he had to forget and the thanks he never gave. When she ran, Sora chased her, hoping to finally fulfill his promise, only to have her turn into someone else. Xion. While Sora didn't know who she was, Roxas did, crying through Sora like he did leaving Twilight Town. And then Xion ran off and disappeared, leaving Sora yet again with more questions. This interaction with Xion and Naminé is Sora's first confrontation with the hurt in his heart. Naminé's pain of being Kairi's shadow, chosen to be forgotten by Sora. Xion's pain of being Kairi's reflection while being Roxas's replica, having no choice to be forgotten for Sora's sake. Roxas's pain of losing Xion, and Sora's pain of being forced to forget a friend he never actually had. It's unknown if Mickey warned Sora of this hurt beforehand, but given the urgency of Xehanort's return that prompted a hasty Mark of Mastery exam, I'm going to guess that he didn't have the time. Even with this scene and the brief conversation Sora and Riku had about Naminé in Kingdom Hearts 2, some are still confused about whether Sora actually remembers Naminé. And I think this scene shows that he does because, again, it feels so personal. Sora stopped dead in his tracks when he saw her, and wanted to make sure it was actually her. It's like he couldn't process all the thoughts and emotions seeing her in front of him. And when she ran off, the way Sora called out and ran to her felt like he remembered her. I love this scene because it made me feel Sora's desperation to fulfill his promise to Naminé, and for it not to actually be her must have hurt him. With his heart aching but no answers to be found, Sora continues on, hoping to find Xion. But what he never expected was to run into Roxas. Roxas insists that because Sora is connected to so many hearts, he can face the hurt and end the pain of those it belongs to. This includes his own, because he understands that he and Sora are the same person, which those are his words, not mine. But Sora believes that he and Roxas are two different people, that Roxas deserves to be his own person. This stuns Roxas, since all he was ever told was that he wasn't a real person. that he was just a nobody and didn't have a heart, that couldn't feel anything, much less be his own person. And here was Sora, the person he gave up his existence for, telling him that everything he was told was wrong, who believes that he should exist. It's an extremely important message not only to Roxas, but to Sora, who wanted to give the message probably since he found out about Roxas. It's an incredible kindness to Roxas, which is why he knows Sora has to be the one to inherit his and the other's pain. Because of their unique situation of nobody and somebody once coexisting, Roxas could have been the one to absorb Sora and eventually be in the position that Sora is in now. But Roxas knows that he could have never been as kind as Sora, so willing to accept the pain of others despite what pain he had already had. Sora had to be the one, so Roxas passed along his memories and pain to Sora. This amount of pain was more than that of Shionne's and Naminé's, and it left Sora wondering what he was supposed to do. If he kept going, was he just going to meet someone who'd disappear, leaving him with nothing but pain? And what was he supposed to do with this pain? How was it going to help anyone? Maybe he could just walk away in hopes of avoiding the pain. But like his Data counterpart, Sora decides to continue on despite the pain, hoping to find a way to mend it. But this is exactly what Xehanort planned on. Sora continuing despite the aching in his heart, so he could be lured into deep sleep. And in the deepest pit of sleep, Sora finally got his answers. First, as he had been suspecting from Prankster's Paradise, nobodies can have hearts. Roxas's memories proved that, and Xemnas confirmed it, stating that the heart and body can only be temporarily separated. The second is that the nobody members of Organization 13 were told that they didn't have hearts, so they could complete Kingdom Hearts to turn all of the members into Xehanort's vessels. The third, most of their candidates were not fit to hold Xehanort's heart, but it was an expected outcome. And the fourth was that Xehanort's selves throughout time were gathered to fill the ranks of the real Organization 13, with Sora being their 13th vessel. Most of us were astounded by these answers and how ridiculous they seemed. But Sora wasn't astounded by Xehanort's final plan. He was astounded by all the people that were affected in the process. Sora was angry that Xemnas had told all the nobodies that they didn't have hearts. He couldn't fathom that he and Xigbar had tricked their fellow members, and he was fed up with how they had treated all the people that were involved in this plan. What they did to Naminé in Castle Oblivion, how they created replicas whose lives were filled with misery, how they kept Roxas in the dark about his identity, the destruction of worlds, and the tearing apart of friendships. Despite of all that, Sora was still stunned because he truly never thought that Xehanort and the organization could do anything worse. They performed horrible experiments that resulted in the creation of Emblem Heartless, costing the hearts of who knows how many, including themselves. They created an organization with a false goal and gave all of its members false hope that they could be complete again. And they expected that most of their members would fail and fade away into nothingness. And yet they continued, causing more and more pain as they tried to make 13 darknesses. They viewed people as nothing more than subjects to be experimented on, and that's what Sora could no longer take. Fed up with it all, Sora begins to lecture Xemnas, explaining to him what hearts are in the best way he can. Simply, Sora is simple, and his speech about hearts both in Kingdom Hearts 1 and 3D show that even though his reasonings and actions are simple, Sora has a profound understanding of hearts and how they work. Xehanort has spent his entire life and subsequent incarnations learning about the heart, but never got anywhere. Despite all his plans, a boy who wasn't even chosen to wield the Keyblade stopped 2 of his major plans that took years to come to fruition, and Sora didn't have to do anything special. He just followed his heart. And that made him so unpredictable that Xehanort couldn't plan for him until now, and even then Sora still surprises him in Xigbar. When Sora stated that his friends made him stronger, Xigbar realized that it was his connection to other Keyblade wielders that gave him strength, and the ability to continue using the Keyblade. To him, that made sense as he's always seen Sora as less capable than other Keyblade wielders, a wimp. Sora turns to Xigbar to prove that he isn't one when Xigbar tells Sora he has another option. He could accept his current situation and join Organization 13 willingly, letting go of his current power for something Xigbar describes as bigger and better. Sora can make himself more powerful, put himself in a larger role. And here's the thing, Sora hesitates before declining the offer. Sora considered how much he'd been through because of the Keyblade. He was given a responsibility he wasn't prepared for, nor did he ask for. It prolonged the search for his friends and his journey home. It caused a rift between him and Riku, and it even abandoned him when Riku realized it was his. The weapon caused him nothing but trouble, and he wasn't even chosen by it at first. And he could let go all of the responsibility it forced upon him. Honestly, I feel like he would have been justified. And since he hesitated, it means that Sora did consider taking the offer. Maybe. But that isn't Sora. He wouldn't throw away everything he's fought for just because he suffered when he didn't have to. He accepts that the Keyblade didn't choose him, and is content with his simple role of being part of the picture, not the focus of it. He doesn't care about power. He doesn't need it. He already has what he needs for power and support. His friends. With them, he stands up to Xigbar and defeats Xemnas once again. Unfortunately, Sora doesn't win the battle. As Zeta, Naminé, and Roxas warned, the pain stemmed from the memories in Sora's heart has the potential to damage or break his heart and drag him into darkness. While Sora was aware that he was deeply connected to some people, it appears he was not made aware of this warning. Sora dove further and further into dreams to get answers, accepting the pain in his heart along the way. But he physically exhausted himself in a place where the darkness loomed close, which added to the strain already put on his heart by the memories. And so the darkness began to consume him from the inside out, allowing Xehanort to move in and take Sora as his 13th vessel. The end of 3D makes it seem that Sora emerged from his sleep with no negative repercussions, which I find hard to believe. After all, it took years for Riku to not only develop his resistance to darkness, but also forgive himself for giving into it in the first place. What I also find hard to believe is Sora not being bummed about not passing the Mark of Mastery exam. Yeah, he's really happy that Riku passed, as he should be. Terra. Be happy for your friend who passed, Terra. But Yensid wasn't exactly fair in his reasoning for failing Sora, at least in my opinion. While it sounds harsh, luckily 0.2 showed us that Sora wasn't that lucky or too happy. It turns out that Sora's time in the darkness prevented him from gaining the power of waking and stripped him of a lot of his strength, which of course so conveniently explains why we'll be level 1 in Kingdom Hearts 3. And in order to gain the power of waking, Sora must regain his strength in Olympus Coliseum. And Sora is seen to be really bummed out by this. He's obviously noticed that he isn't as strong as he once was. He was forced to take a major step backwards and has to prove himself all over again. If I was Sora, I'd be really frustrated. But in true Sora fashion, he brushes it off, but I still think it got to him. Despite the setback, Yensid still insists that Sora is their key to stopping Xehanort, which Sora is surprised at. This is why I think Kingdom Hearts 3 says it will show us a mature Sora. Sora learned a different lesson from the Mark of Mastery exam. Don't let your guard down. No one expected Sora to be Xehanort's target, and Sora didn't take the test seriously. And the result was a severe blow to Sora's strength, but not his purpose. Sora now understands that he's important, not just to the Guardians of Light, but to Xehanort. And I think we're going to see Sora take things a lot more seriously. The most recent trailers show Sora very guarded when facing a Xehanort, but the trailers have also shown Xehanort will not give up in trying to bring Sora to the dark side. Sora has hinted at wanting to bring Roxas back, but Xemnas proposes that there's only one way to do it. Sora has to call upon the darkness in his heart. This is obviously a trap, but it already shows us that Sora is going to have to deal with more than just opposing forces from the outside. It'll be truly interesting to see where this plot point will lead. As I said at the beginning of this series, I wanted to make this because I saw a lot of people criticizing Sora for lack of character development, and I hope that this series has made anyone who thought that reconsider. And as this series ends, I wanted to address some final misconceptions that I had seen going around. That Sora has no incentive to face any member of the real Organization 13, and that someone else should defeat Master Xehanort. I'm appalled that this idea gained popularity, because it's completely untrue. The arguments are that Master Xehanort or his other selves have not had a direct impact on Sora's life to the extent the other protagonists have had. Master Xehanort took control of Terra's body, maimed Ven's heart, took Ven and Terra away from Aqua, and destroyed the home that they and Ericus lived in. Ansem possessed Riku and continued to haunt him until Dream Drop Distance. Xigbar and Xemnas lied to all the members of the organization about not having hearts and what their goal was. They planned on using Naminé's powers before Marluxia turned on them, kept Roxas and Shio's identities a secret, and forced Axel to fight both of his best friends, and made his best friend from his human life a vessel. Saix kept Kairi prisoner to further fuel Sora's anger. These are all valid incentives, and each protagonist should have a chance at taking down members of the true Organization 13. But Sora has incentives too. Terra Xehanort's experiments released countless Heartless into the worlds, and they would eventually destroy his home. Ansem convinced his best friend to open the door to darkness and open up the islands to destruction, and then continued to manipulate Riku into betraying Sora and then possessing him just to gain a physical form. Because of the possession, Riku was trapped in the realm of darkness, which prolonged Sora's homecoming for a year. The presence of Ansem in Riku's heart prevented Sora from locating Riku because he didn't want to be found, so Sora was unsure of his friend's safety for a year. Master Xehanort's inclusion of Maleficent caused her to search for the Princesses of Heart, which put Kairi in danger. The attack of the Heartless on the islands because of Ansem's meddling caused Sora and Kairi to be separated, and for Kairi's heart to leave her body and take refuge into Sora's. This, of course, caused Sora to sacrifice himself to free Kairi and the other princesses' hearts that were trapped in a Keyblade of Ansem's making. Marluxia and Larxine's distrust of Xemnas caused them to change whatever plans he had for Sora in Castle Oblivion, resulting in Sora losing his memories, gaining new ones, caring for Naminé, and then having to choose to let one set of memories go. Xemnas' plans for Xion prolonged Sora's awakening and eventually caused her end. Whatever Xemnas' plans were for Naminé's powers, it still involved memory manipulation, which changed the fate of Roxas, who could have probably remained coexisting with Sora without his memories. After manipulating Xion and Roxas, Xemnas chose to continue obtaining hearts for Kingdom Hearts by capturing the hearts Sora was releasing. Even after knowing this plan, Sora was unable to stop defeating Heartless unless he was willing to put innocent people in harm's way. Xemnas' manipulation of Xion and Roxas angered Axel, so he kidnapped Kairi in order to make Sora desperate enough to sacrifice himself in order to save her and bring Roxas back. When Kairi got away from Axel, Saix imprisoned her and forced Sora to beg to see her, only to refuse his plea. The same manipulation pitted Roxas and Riku against each other and forced Riku to channel Ansem's power. Ansem marked Sora with the Recusant Sigil, allowing young Xehanort and Xigbar to hijack the Mark of Mastery exam and separate him from Riku. Young Xehanort, Xigbar, and Xemnas multiple times taunted Sora about his strength and tried to cast doubt on Sora's role as a hero to tempt him to join the organization. The forced battle with Xemnas put Sora to sleep and caused the darkness to nearly consume him. And finally, Master Xehanort's manipulation of the Mark of Mastery exam forced Sora to face the pain in his heart with no warning, help, or idea on how to handle him. His near success at making Sora his final vessel caused Sora to fail the exam, preventing him from obtaining the power of waking, and stripped him of the strength he had gained during Dream Drop distance. That's a lot of manipulation directed at Sora, and it definitely gives him a reason to fight any member of the organization he chooses. And even with Sora's setback, Yensid still believes he's the best chance at stopping Xehanort. As for why, I offer two explanations. The first is that Sora has always been a wild card, someone Xehanort can't predict. Sora was an ordinary boy who got the Keyblade by accident. No one expected him to succeed at his role. And not only did he stop Maleficent, he freed the Princesses of Heart by sacrificing himself, only to be returned to the Realm of Light by one of the princesses, and called out the true nature of Kingdom Hearts to defeat Ansem. He proved himself a powerful force even at the mercy of a changing memory, and his memories proved powerful enough to influence Xion's identity, to Xemnas' admitted surprise. The only time Master Xehanort had any plan that Sora followed completely was the Mark of Mastery exam, which was manipulated for Sora at the beginning. And with their ace captured, Yensid relied on Lee's spontaneity to catch Master Xehanort off guard. With Sora free from Master Xehanort's influence, he's now back to being the best weapon against him. No doubt Sora will find some way to best Xehanort that won't be expected. And even with the looming plot point of Sora facing the darkness inside him, he'll most likely come up with a solution different than Riku's, and one that Xehanort will not understand. And that unpredictability is why Xehanort wants Sora on his side. He would be able to predict the other Guardians with better chances of success, and Sora would be a powerful ally. It's incredibly smart of Xehanort to exploit Sora's weaknesses and try to get the one guy who constantly defeated him on his side. My second explanation is that Sora and Xehanort are incredibly well-designed characters that act as foils to each other, and having them face each other in the final battle will be an incredible showcase of that. Both Xehanort and Sora come from Destiny Islands, and both wanted to venture out to other worlds. Both came into possession of Keyblades originally not their own, Sora with Riku's Kingdom Key, and Xehanort with the Master of Masters no name. Both have an influence on nearly every character in the Kingdom Hearts universe, and both were at one point reduced to just a heart. The differences that emerge from these similarities define the nature of their characters. Both Sora and Xehanort intentionally became heartless. Xehanort's intention was to use his heartless self to go back in time and grant that power to his younger self, so he could use it to gather other Xehanorts throughout time, then have that heartless position himself in a moment in the present he could take advantage of in the future. That heartless progressed the plan of assembling a Kingdom Hearts made out of the Hearts of Worlds, and made sure that Maleficent gathered the 7 Princesses of Heart. With a nobody being created in the process, that nobody would gather 13 other nobodies and construct a Kingdom Hearts made from the hearts of humans that would then be used to turn the remaining 10 members into Xehanort's vessels of pure darkness. As a reminder, Xigbar and Saïx were already Norded by this point. Sora's intention was to free Kairi's heart from within his own body, allowing her and the other Princesses of Heart to awaken. He had no knowledge of his nobody until after it had returned to him, and now he seeks to revive his nobody as his own person. Both Heartless were returned to physical form through another. Ansem took possession of Riku's heart and used his body to form a new one. Sora's heart was restored to physical form by Kairi's powers as a Princess of Heart, and their deep feelings for each other. Already, I think it's obvious that Xehanort's intentions are not only more sinister, but more complex than Sora's. Sora and Xehanort's influences and connections to other characters in the Kingdom Hearts universe stretch far beyond themselves, and funny enough, in ways that traditionally are attributed to their opposites. Xehanort has splintered his heart into 9 other people, and we see that a vessel containing Xehanort's heart eventually changes in some way, and their eyes change to a color closer to Xehanort's. In the case of Xigbar, his hair has begun to turn white, and their personalities or morals are corrupted. This is seen most prevalent in Saïx. Xehanort's giving out pieces of his heart, but with the intent of using those pieces and the people therein for his goals. Sora has taken in the hearts of those seeking refuge from pain and darkness into his own with the intent of helping them heal, and when they can stand on their own, the bond they formed helps them both when needed. The best example is Ven, whose heart Sora helped heal after the destruction of the Keyblade. This heart then protected Sora from the darkness that was closing in on him in 3D. Normally, giving and taking are attributed to positive and negative respectively, but is reversed for Sora and Xehanort. But what's even more interesting is to see the 2 instances of when Sora did give out pieces of himself in contrast to Xehanort. Sora filled the part of Ven's heart that was taken away by Vanitas' creation. This not only allowed Ven to heal and eventually make more of his life, but also gave Vanitas a face. No other influence of Sora's is seen in these 2, and with Xion, he lent his memories to her so that she could form her own identity. It was only when Xion's nature as a replica began to grow stronger did we see more of Sora's influence. But Sora himself never actually played a part in that. If Xehanort was the one who lent Xion an identity, she would have quickly been corrupted and would have simply become a vessel for Xehanort's heart. Xehanort may give, but he also consumes. Sora may take, but he also allows the connections he makes to grow beyond him. Again, Xehanort's intentions are sinister and complex. Sora's are benign and simple. Or should I say, simple and clean. To defeat your enemy is to understand them, and I don't think anyone else can understand Xehanort as well as Sora can, even if he doesn't know that yet. Yes, the other protagonists can face Master Xehanort, but it would really only be settling a grudge. Sora facing Master Xehanort would be pitting 2 very unusual and powerful Keyblade Masters against each other in a clash of purely opposite ideas, goals, and personalities. Sora has to be the one to defeat Master Xehanort, and I hope that Kingdom Hearts 3 allows Sora to be the one to end him. And finally, I wanted to thank everybody who's stuck with me and stuck with this series as non-existent for the most part as it has been. It's been a rough couple years for me since I first announced this series, but I'm glad that I got to do this. It's been great, and I really hope that people, start to see Sora differently. Over the years, the outlook on Sora's character has improved, especially since when I originally wrote this. But I still think that this series still needed to be made, so that we can all really understand how epic the battle between Sora and Xehanort in Kingdom Hearts 3 will be. So, thank you, everybody, for watching.